Well, folks, yesterday was MLK Day, and that was an excuse for people on the left to start talking about racial reparations once again. San Francisco, apparently, is now considering a regime of racial reparations. San Francisco's Reparations Committee has now proposed a $5 million payment to each black longtime resident, as well as total debt forgiveness of all debt. Based on what? I'm unaware that anybody who's alive today was a slave in the United States. If so, then we should probably find out about that. I'm unaware that the members of the San Francisco taxpaying community were slaveholders at any point in their lives or in the lives of their parents or in the lives of their grandparents. However, that is not stopping San Francisco from talking up race reparations. According to Fox News, San Francisco's Reparations Committee has proposed paying each black longtime resident $5 million. By the way, California was a free state when it was originally admitted to the Union, and granting total debt forgiveness due to the decades of systemic repression faced by the local black community. The San Francisco African American Reparations Advisory Committee, which advises the city on developing a plan for reparations for black residents, released its draft report last month to address reparations, not for slavery, but to, quote, address the public policies explicitly created to subjugate black people in San Francisco by upholding and expanding the intent and legacy of chattel slavery. So presumably these would be policies of, for example, redlining, despite the fact that it has been illegal in the United States to redline since the late 1970s, despite the fact that the federal government and state government in California have subsidized black home ownership for decades on end, despite the fact that public policy in the United States has been heavily tilted in favor of discriminatory actions on behalf of black Americans since the affirmative action moves of the 1960s and 1970s. Doesn't matter. The draft says, quote, while neither San Francisco nor California formally adopted the institution of chattel slavery, the tenets of segregation, white supremacy, and systematic repression and exclusion of black people were codified through legal and extra-legal actions, social codes, and judicial enforcement. The draft plan includes a long list of financial recommendations for black San Francisco residents, including a one-time lump sum payment of $5 million to each eligible individual. Now, you will notice, again, the vagary of the language here, that, yeah, we didn't actually have slavery here, but there were tenets of segregation. Now, again, there were no Jim Crow laws in California, as far as I'm aware. That was reserved exclusively for the southern United States. There may have been informal regimes of racism in California. There certainly were, no question. That does not mean that that was legal action by the government of California in order to uphold that. So you'd actually have to look at each specific law and each individual person who is impacted by that specific law. And that's on the moral side, right? When you're talking about reparations, you have to discuss who sinned and who was sinned against. You actually have to show who was sinned against by what policy promulgated by whom, if you actually wish to pay reparations. If you're seriously talking about repairing a damage that was done, you have to ask who did the damage and to whom. And then you have to ask a secondary question, which we'll get to in just a moment, which is this designed to work? What ill is this designed to remedy? Specifically when we are talking right now about people, predominantly in San Francisco, who were born post the civil rights era. You're talking in San Francisco, people who are born in the year 2000, right? Those people are 23 years old right now. In the year 2000, was vast racial discrimination the way in San Francisco? Is that a serious problem in public policy in San Francisco in, say, the year 2000 or, say, the year 1990? Well, how long is this going to go on? A lump sum payment would compensate the affected population for decades of harms they've experienced and will redress the economic and opportunity losses that black San Franciscans have endured collectively as a result of both intentional decisions and unintended harms perpetuated by city policy, according to the draft statement. So now we are supposed to do reparations for unintended harms. So public policy that accidentally harmed black folks, that is now going to be redressed by a giant bag of cash, presumably according to the San Francisco committee. Now, that's going to be kind of a problem because, as it turns out, virtually every Democratic policy in a major American city for the last 60 years has harmed black Americans disproportionately. I presume accidentally. Do we now pay reparations for all of that bad policy? Are we going to pay reparations for all the bad policing policy that has disproportionately harmed black Americans in major American cities over the course of the last 4 or 5 years? How is that going to work? To be eligible for the program, the applicant has to be 18 years old and has to have identified as black or African American on public documents for at least 10 years. They must also prove at least 2 of 8 additional criteria, choosing from a list that includes born in San Francisco between 1940 and 1996 and has proof of residency in San Francisco for at least 13 years, and or personally or the direct descendant of someone incarcerated by the failed war on drugs. So now we are going to pay reparations to you if your parent went to jail for drug dealing. Because every aspect of America, according to the woke left, has been impacted by the legacy of slavery and Jim Crow, and that is up to and including your criminal violations. So if you were selling cocaine to a minor, and then you went to jail, and you're the child of that person, now you deserve reparations because of the failed war on drugs. The plan also calls on the city to supplement lower income recipients' income to reflect the area median income, about 97 grand annually for at least 250 years. 250 years. Okay. Racial disparities across all metrics have led to a significant racial wealth gap in the city of San Francisco, it argued. By elevating income to match AMI, Black people can better afford housing and achieve a better quality of life. The plan also seeks to establish a comprehensive debt forgiveness program that clears each eligible person's student and housing loans, credit card debt, etc. We'll get to more on all this in just 1 second. First, if you're tired of the government playing games with your savings and your retirement plans, you need to get in touch with the experts at Birch Gold today. For over 5,000 years, gold has withstood inflation, geopolitical turmoil, and stock market crashes. Well, now you can own gold in a tax-sheltered retirement account. Birch Gold makes it easy to convert an IRA or 401k into an IRA in precious metals. Text BEN to 989898, claim your free information kit on gold. Then, talk to one of their precious metals specialists. When you purchase from Birch Gold by January 31st, you'll get a signed copy of my book, How to Destroy America in 3 Easy Steps, which seems more and more like the Biden administration playbook these days. With an A-plus rating from the Better Business Bureau, thousands of happy customers, and countless 5-star reviews, you can trust Birch Gold to help protect your savings. I bought gold because I was tired of my money being impacted by the decisions made by people at the Federal Reserve and in the Treasury Department. Well, if you want to be more like me, text BEN to 989898, claim your free information kit, get a signed copy of my book today. That's BEN to 989898 today. Ask all of your questions, and when you feel comfortable, start investing with my friends over at Birch Gold. Text BEN to 989898 to get started today. Speaking of the economy is on a knife's edge right now. Most economists expect a recession in the near future, just another blow to your business. But here's the thing. It is possible that over the course of the past several years, you actually spent too much money on your taxes. What if you could claw some of that money back? You should give my friends at Innovation Refunds a call. If your business has 5 or more employees and managed to survive COVID, you could be eligible to receive a payroll tax rebate of up to $26,000 per employee. This isn't a loan. There's no payback. It is a refund on your taxes. The challenge is how do you get your hands on it? How do you cut through the red tape and get your business the refund money? Go to getrefunds.com. Their team of tax attorneys are highly trained in this little-known payroll tax refund program. They've already returned $1 billion to businesses, and they can help you as well. They do all the work, no charge up front. Simply share a percentage of the cash that they get for you. Businesses of all types can qualify, including those who took PPP, nonprofits, even those who had increases in sales. Just head on over to getrefunds.com, click on Qualify Me, answer a few quick questions. This payroll tax refund, it's only available for a limited amount of time. Do not miss out. Go to getrefunds.com. Again, that is getrefunds.com, getrefunds.com to get started. So now, if you want to go to college, you got your stuff together, you did well in high school, you want to go to college, all your student loan debt is going to be relieved. They also want you to have your credit card debt relieved. So if you've been spending exorbitant amounts of cash on random nonsense, that should be relieved also because of the legacy of slavery and Jim Crow in the year 2023. Again, calendars exist, folks. We are not living in the year 1964. We are living in the year 2023. I had my 39th birthday on Sunday. I was born in 1984, 20 years after the Civil Rights Act. 2 decades, like a full generation. And so is pretty much everybody that we are talking about in San Francisco right now. Black households are more likely to hold costlier, riskier debt and are more likely to have outstanding student loan debt, the draft explains. When this is combined with lower household incomes, it creates an inescapable cycle of debt. Eliminating this debt gives black households an opportunity to build wealth. So again, the idea is that if you have a bad credit history, we have to wipe away your credit card debt. And then we have to give you a low interest loan. And this is what's going to allow you to rise out of poverty. The problem is all of these loans have largely been available to people who have established decent credit over the course of their lifetimes. Why don't the rules apply to people who were born in San Francisco and are black and were born in the same year I was born, say 1984, or well after that? Because apparently you have to be born, like, as long as you were born, according to their recommendations, between 1940 and 1996. 1996, okay, which would make you, again, by my calculation, 27 years old. This means that you are now eligible for the kind of thing they're recommending. Board of Supervisors President Aaron Peskin told the San Francisco Chronicle he hopes the plan is approved. Quote, there are so many efforts that result in incredible reports that just end up gathering dust on a shelf. We cannot let this be one of them. Amazing stuff there from the San Francisco Reparations Committee. Now, is this actually going to be effectuated? Of course, this is not actually going to happen because the immediate result of this would be to radically increase the cost on San Francisco city government. It would radically increase the taxes. Businesses would flee. San Francisco would turn into a ghost town. You want to turn cities into Detroit? Detroit was one of the most successful cities in the United States in the 1950s and 1960s. And then racial conflict, increasing taxes, massive regulation drove a lot of people who had the means out of the city. And you ended up with a de facto arena of racial separatism, a largely black city where virtually everybody who was white moved out of the interior of the city. despite the fact that it had been one of the more integrated cities in the American North and one of the most successful industrialized cities in the American North, particularly for American blacks. Now, all of these policies have precisely the opposite of the consequences that they seek to achieve. But we are having these conversations now because we have to achieve a quote-unquote more equitable world, right? This is the buzzword of the Biden administration. And this has been the buzzword of Democrats going all the way back to Lyndon Baines Johnson in the 1960s. And it has been a complete fail. So here yesterday was the incompetent and horrifically untalented Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, who lives in a country so racist that she's Vice President of the United States specifically because she was picked by affirmative action lottery by Joe Biden to be the Vice President of the United States. If she were a white lady, that she would not be Vice President of the United States. She would just be a less talented Amy Klobuchar. So here is Kamala Harris talking up a more equitable world.
Hey, everyone. Today, we honor the legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Dr. King was a prophet. He saw the future as it could be, a future of equity, justice, and opportunity for all. Freedom is never really won. You earn it and you win it in every generation. So let us all commit to continue the fight for justice for our generation and for generations to come.
And what is she talking about? She, of course, is talking about vast bevies of government spending. Sunny Hostin on The View made it clear. She said that on Martin Luther King Day, we should remember that the country was built on the backs of black people for free, so we need to talk about racial reparations. Now, if we're going to talk about the history of discrimination and people who have been victimized in the American project, that list is very, very long. And of course, black Americans historically are at the top of the list. Also included in the list would be Asian Americans who were exploited to build the railroads, for example, or Latino Americans who were used for extraordinarily cheap labor in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. There have been a lot of people who've been victimized in the history of the United States. But the amazing thing about the United States is that everybody has the chance to rise in the modern era. Alrighty, guys, the rest of the show is continuing now. You're not going to want to miss it. We are going to get to disaster breaking out in terms of the Chinese economy. Their population is actively declining at this point. Is that the future of the United States as well? If you're not a member, become a member. Use code Shapiro at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans. Click the link in the description and join us.